Question: why is it from about 50 AD to 200 AD, most Christian literature does not even mention the Apostle Paul, let alone quote him? Why?
Hey, thanks so much for the question. There is actually a ton of Christian literature that mentions Paul and quotes from his letters. Let me give you some references. For instance, in his epistle to the Philippians, Polycarp cites Paul's letters 16 times. Polycarp also explicitly refers to Paul as an apostle. By the way, Polycarp was a disciple of the Apostle John. He also apparently kept Passover in accordance with the Hebrew calendar. So since you, like me, are a fan of the Torah, hopefully you'll appreciate that. Second, Ignatius, who was another early 2nd century Christian writer and disciple of John, he calls Paul an apostle and quotes from and alludes to Paul's letters of Ephesians and 1 Corinthians. Papias, bishop of Hierapolis, who lived from 60 to 130 AD, quotes Paul's letter of 1 Corinthians. The epistle of Diognetus, written by an unknown Christian apologist as early as 130 AD, references Philippians and 2 Corinthians. The author of 1 Clement, which some scholars date to sometime before 70 AD, quotes and alludes to Paul's letters of Titus, Romans, 1 Corinthians, and Ephesians. Justin Martyr, an early 2nd century Christian apologist, alludes to Paul's letters of 1 Corinthians and Galatians. Irenaeus, a 2nd century Greek bishop, quotes Galatians, Romans, Ephesians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Philippians, and probably more. I found these references only from reading the first 11 out of 31 chapters of his first book in Against Heresies. There are 4 additional books, each containing 25 to 41 chapters. Theophilus of Antioch, who lived in the 2nd century and was known for his work against Marcion, appeals to several of Paul's letters. He quotes Romans, 1 Corinthians, and alludes to Philippians, Ephesians, Titus, and Colossians. Athenagoras, another 2nd century Christian apologist, refers to Paul as an apostle and quotes 1 Corinthians 15 in support of his argument for the truth of the resurrection. Clement of Alexandria, a 2nd century Christian theologian, quotes Galatians, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and probably more that I could easily find if I took the time to go through all of his writings. There are more, but hopefully that will give you a good start.
Yeah, there were a few that did, including Marcion, the son of Satan, the great heretic. He loved Paul.
It's certainly true that Marcion the heretic used edited versions of Paul's letters to try to promote his false doctrines. But so what? Why throw out Paul because some later heretic used edited versions of his letters? Do we throw out the rest of the Bible just because Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others misuse it to promote their false doctrine? I'm not going to throw out the Old Testament just because you quote it.
Even within the New Testament books themselves, a lot of people don't realize that the letters of Paul were written first. They were written before the Gospels, before 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, before James, before Jude, before Revelation. Where did they quote Paul as an authority? They don't.
Well, the book of Acts mentions Paul quite a bit.
A lot of people believe that Revelation chapter 2, verse 2 is talking about Paul.
No, they don't. Only a few fringe people on the internet within the last 10 years or so have believed that, and it's a complete twisting of scripture, as I explain in this video.
A lot of scholars believe that James chapter 2 is a rebuttal to Galatians chapter 3.
No, not really. There has been a lot of good work done to reconcile the apparent contradictions between James and Paul. I address this issue in my book, When Faith Works.
Some Nimnu might say, oh, but Peter does in 2 Peter chapter 3. Time to get some education. Go talk to your local paleographer. Go talk to your credible New Testament scholar. Most, if not all, agree that 2 Peter was not written by Peter. It was a forgery.
Thanks for reminding me. Yes, Peter in 2 Peter 3 is another early direct reference to Paul and Paul's letters. Now, I've heard you say that 2 Peter is a forgery in several videos, but you never actually explain why that is the case. Many scholars do doubt that Peter wrote 2 Peter, but there are also a lot of solid scholars who believe it is authentic. When you actually examine the reasons for why some people doubt 2 Peter's authenticity, you find that the supposed problems with it are overstated, say the least. For instance, many people point out 2 Peter's lack of external attestation, but there is actually quite an adequate amount of external attestation for this letter. The author of 1 Clement clearly depended upon 2 Peter as a source, which gives us evidence that early Christians knew of and utilized 2 Peter as early as the late 1st century. When scholars say that there is a lack of early external attestation to 2 Peter, they are not saying that there is no early external attestation. Like I said, we do have evidence that points to an early date of writing for the letter and for early acceptance of the letter among the Christian communities. We just don't have as much attestation of 2 Peter as we do other New Testament writings. However, compared to extra-biblical writings of the same time period, the external attestation we have for 2 Peter is quite adequate. For instance, nobody doubts the authenticity of the writings of Herodotus, Tacitus, or Thucydides, and yet the external attestation for these writings is significantly less than that of 2 Peter. Another objection is that 2 Peter appears to borrow from Jude, and since Jude was supposedly written after Peter's death, then Peter could not have been the author of 2 Peter. However, it is not necessarily the case that 2 Peter depends upon Jude as a source. As numerous scholars have argued, it is entirely possible that it's the other way around and that Jude actually borrows from 2 Peter. Additionally, if we assume that 2 Peter does depend upon Jude, the late date applied to Jude is not set in stone. Some scholars date Jude to the 50s AD. Thus, the objections to 2 Peter's authenticity on the basis of its literary relationship with Jude are far from conclusive. I'm in the middle of recording a verse-by-verse commentary through 2 Peter for 119 Ministries right now. I go into much more detail on this topic in part 1 of that series, which should be released soon. In the meantime, check out this paper from Michael Kruger.
We don't want a stupid answer. We don't want a blow-off answer. We don't want a straw man answer, or a deflection, or a distraction from the issue at hand. We want a good answer with good, hard evidence. Why?
Okay, so I've given you what you've asked for. Hopefully this will be a good start for you as you examine this issue more closely. Thanks so much for the question. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, consider giving it a thumbs up and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you want to see more content like this, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel. You can also hit that little bell so that you'll be notified when new videos like this are released. I'll see you next time. Blessings and shalom.